Get your hands off that Rolls Royce before I call the cops.
Patricia Davenport's voice cracked across the valet circle of the Grand Lakeshore Country Club. Every head on the terrace turned. A tall black man stood beside a midnight blue Rolls Royce Spectre, keys in hand. Byron Fletcher looked at her.
This is my car.
She laughed.
Yours? You could never afford the hubcaps.
I'm a member here. Walk away.
She spun toward the terrace.
Someone call security. This man is stealing a car.
Nobody moved. Nobody spoke.
It's got checked.
She dialed 911.
Cops are coming.
Byron said nothing and waited. But what Patricia didn't know was who she had just called a cockroach. And when the truth came out, it destroyed everything she had. But before we get to that moment, let me take you back to the beginning. Let me show you who Byron Fletcher really was. Because the man standing in that parking lot, he wasn't who Patricia Davenport thought he was. Not even close. Byron Fletcher woke up every morning at 5:45. No alarm. His body just knew. 30 years of discipline had turned it into instinct. His penthouse sat on the 44th floor of a glass tower overlooking Lake Michigan. On clear mornings, the sunrise painted the water in gold and copper. Byron stood by the window every day and watched it happen. 3 minutes, never more. It was his ritual before the world started talking. The place was clean, minimal, no flashy art on the walls, no trophy shelves. Just a framed photo of his mother, Lorraine, standing in front of a chalkboard at the Southside Elementary School where she taught for 31 years. Next to it, his diploma from Howard University. And on the fridge, a sticky note in her handwriting. Stay low, build high. He made pour-over coffee, black, no sugar. He scrolled Bloomberg on his tablet while the steam curled up past his fingers. He read in silence. That was Byron, quiet before the noise. Now, here's what most people didn't know about Byron Fletcher. He was the founder and CEO of Titan Crest Holdings, a private equity firm that quietly owned stakes in 14 mid-size companies across the Midwest. Hospitality groups, logistics firms, commercial real estate. His net worth sat north of $900 million. But you'd never know it from looking at him. No magazine covers, no interviews, no Twitter rants. Byron moved in silence. He built in silence. The only indulgence he allowed himself was that midnight blue Rolls-Royce Spectre, purchased 6 months ago, registered in his name. He loved that car not because it was expensive, but because his mother once told him she'd never even sat in a car with leather seats. Now her son owned one worth $500,000. Byron's personality was simple. He was calm, measured. He never raised his voice. Not in boardrooms, not in arguments, not when someone cut him off in traffic. He had learned something early in life that most people never understand. A loud black man gets treated differently than a loud white man. So he made silence his superpower. And it worked. Now let me tell you about the place where everything went wrong. The Grand Lakeshore Country Club sat on 12 acres of manicured lakefront property in the northern suburbs of Chicago. Old money, old traditions, old faces. Membership cost $85,000 a year. The waiting list was long. The dining room smelled of cedar and roasted lamb every Saturday. Valets in white shirts opened doors for members who drove Porsches and BMWs and the occasional Bentley. The membership was 92% white. That wasn't an accident. It was a culture, unspoken but enforced. Byron had joined 2 years ago, not because he wanted to network, not because he cared about status. He joined because Titan Crest Holdings had acquired a 60% stake in Lakeshore Hospitality Group, the parent company that owned and operated the club. Byron Fletcher, through his firm, was the club's ultimate owner. Almost nobody there knew it, and Byron liked it that way. Now, Patricia Davenport. Patricia was 54, white, blonde highlights that cost $300 every 6 weeks. She was the VP of operations at Lakeshore Hospitality Group, which meant she technically worked for Titan Crest Holdings, which meant she technically worked for Byron Fletcher. She had no idea. Patricia had been a member of the club for 12 years. She sat on the social committee. She organized the annual gala. She decided who felt welcome and who didn't. And if you weren't white, wealthy, and familiar, you didn't feel welcome. She had complained twice in writing to club management about Byron's presence. She described him as unfamiliar and possibly not a member. She never used his name. She didn't bother to learn it. Her husband, Stuart Davenport, was the CFO of the same subsidiary. Together they were the golden couple of the lakeshore social scene. Patricia believed she owned the room. She was about to find out she didn't even own her job. So now you've got the picture. Byron Fletcher, quiet, wealthy, powerful, standing in a parking lot while a woman who works for him calls the police on him for touching his own car. Let's go back to that moment. Byron had just finished brunch. He ate alone. He always did on Saturdays. Corner table by the window, grilled salmon, sparkling water, a tablet propped against the bread basket. He read for 45 minutes, paid his check, and walked through the dining room toward the front entrance. The sun hit him as he stepped outside. Warm, mid-afternoon. The smell of fresh-cut grass drifted from the fairway. Sprinklers hissed in the distance. A light breeze carried the sound of laughter from the terrace where members sipped rosé and talked about nothing important. Byron walked across the lot toward his Rolls Royce. He pressed the key fob. The car chirped. The headlights blinked twice. He reached for the door handle. That's when Patricia's voice hit him. "Get your filthy black hands off that Rolls Royce before I call the cops." Byron turned. Patricia stood 15 feet away near the valet stand. Two friends flanked her, both white women in sundresses, both frozen mid-conversation. Patricia's face was twisted with certainty, not fear, not confusion, certainty. She had already decided what was happening. Byron looked at her. "This is my car." "Yours?" She laughed. "You black apes can't even afford the hubcaps." "I'm a member here. Walk away." "Member? You crawled in like a cockroach." She spun toward the terrace. "Someone call security. This thug is stealing a car." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. She dialed 911. Now let's talk about what she said on that call, because the 911 recording would later become evidence, and every word mattered. Patricia told the dispatcher, "There is a black male trying to steal a Rolls Royce from the Grand Lakeshore Country Club. He's acting aggressive and suspicious. Please send someone immediately." Acting aggressive. Byron hadn't moved. He hadn't raised his voice. He had said 9 words total. But in Patricia's mind, a black man standing next to an expensive car was already a crime in progress. She hung up and crossed her arms, smiled, satisfied, like she'd done the neighborhood a favor. Byron stood still. He put his keys in his pocket. He didn't reach for his phone. He didn't argue. He just breathed. In, out, slow. He knew what was coming. He'd been here before. Not at this club, not with this car, but in this exact situation. Different setting, same script. 2 squad cars pulled into the club's entrance 8 minutes later. Lights flashing. No sirens, but the lights were enough. Blue and red strobed across the white facade of the clubhouse. The crunch of tires on gravel made every head on the terrace snap forward. Officer Greg Nolan stepped out of the first car. White, mid-40s, buzz cut, shoulders squared like he was walking into a combat zone, not a country club parking lot. His hand rested on his belt, not on his weapon, but close enough to send a message. Officer Denise Caldwell stepped out of the second car, calmer. She scanned the scene with her eyes first before moving her feet. She noticed Byron's posture, hands visible, shoulders relaxed, no sudden movements. She noticed, but she didn't say anything. Not yet. Nolan walked straight to Byron, not to Patricia, not to the valet stand, straight to the black man. "Sir, step away from the vehicle." Byron stepped back. 1 step, hands at his sides, visible. "Can I ask what this is about, officer?" We got a report of a vehicle theft. That your car? Yes, sir, it is. You got ID? Byron reached slowly into his back pocket. He pulled out his wallet. He handed over his driver's license, his vehicle registration, and his club membership card. Every document matched. Byron Fletcher, the Rolls-Royce Spectre, Grand Lakeshore Country Club member since 2 years ago. Nolan looked at the documents, looked at Byron, looked at the car, then looked at Patricia, who had walked up behind him like she was part of the investigation. "Officer, I've been a member here for 12 years, Patricia said. Her voice was sweet now, cooperative, helpful citizen voice. I have never seen this man before. That car does not belong to anyone like him. Anyone like him." Those 3 words floated in the air. Officer Caldwell's eyes flicked to her partner. She caught them. She filed them away. But Nolan? Nolan didn't flinch. He turned back to Byron. "I'm going to need you to wait here while I sort this out." "My documents are clean, officer. Everything matches." "I understand that, sir, but a complaint was filed. I need to follow procedure." He didn't return Byron's documents. He walked back to his squad car with Byron's license and registration in his hand. Byron was now effectively detained. No handcuffs, no charges. But he couldn't leave without his identification, and Nolan knew that. Let me be clear about what was happening here. Byron had provided legal proof of ownership. His name was on the registration. His photo was on the license. His membership card was valid. A club manager named Todd had just walked out the front entrance and confirmed, yes, Byron Fletcher is a member here, has been for 2 years. Todd told Nolan directly, "Officer, Mr. Fletcher is one of our members. There's no issue here." Nolan barely looked at him. "Ma'am filed a report. I have to follow through." Todd opened his mouth, then closed it, then walked back inside. Another bystander who saw everything and did nothing. Now here's where the crowd comes in. The terrace at the Grand Lakeshore Country Club sat elevated above the parking lot. It was designed for watching sunsets over the lake, but that Saturday, it became a theater. And Byron was the show. Members drifted to the railing with their wine glasses and iced teas. Some whispered, some pointed. A few pulled out phones and started recording, not to help, to watch. A young white couple near the railing exchanged glances. The woman looked uncomfortable. She leaned toward her partner and muttered something. He shrugged. They stayed. They watched. They did nothing. An older man in a blazer shook his head slowly. But whether he was shaking it at Patricia or at Byron, you couldn't tell. He didn't speak up either. The only person who looked like he wanted to act was Russell, a 61-year-old black man who worked the valet stand. Russell had been parking cars at this club for 9 years. He knew every member by name. He knew Byron Fletcher. He knew that Rolls-Royce. He had parked it himself more times than he could count. Russell stood behind the valet podium, his jaw tight, his eyes burning. He gripped the edge of the stand until his knuckles turned pale. He wanted to walk over there. He wanted to tell those officers the truth. But Russell was also the only black employee on shift that day. He'd been written up last month for tone. His crime was politely correcting a white member who parked in a handicap spot. He knew what speaking up could cost him. So he stood there, watching, hurting, silent. Patricia circled back to her friends near the terrace steps. She spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm just trying to protect this community. You can never be too careful these days. You know how they are." "You know how they are." Byron heard it. He didn't react. He stood by the squad car with his hands at his sides, watching every face, hearing every word, cataloging every second. He wasn't just enduring this moment. He was recording it. In his mind, in detail, with the patience of a man who had learned long ago that memory is evidence. The sprinklers kept hissing on the fairway. The ice kept clinking in glasses on the terrace. The sun kept shining like nothing was wrong, but everything was wrong. And it was about to get worse. 15 minutes had passed. Byron Fletcher was still standing in that parking lot. No charges, no crime, no warrant. Just a black man waiting for permission to drive his own car. Officer Nolan walked back from his squad car. He still had Byron's documents in his hand. He hadn't returned them. He stopped 3 feet in front of Byron, close enough to make a point. "All right, I need you to open the vehicle." Byron looked at him. "Excuse me?" "The car. Open it up. Pop the trunk. Let me take a look inside." "No." The word landed like a brick on concrete. Nolan's jaw shifted. He wasn't used to hearing that word, especially not from someone in Byron's position. "If you've got nothing to hide, why not just pop the trunk?" Byron kept his voice level. "Because you don't have a warrant. I've already provided my registration. My name matches the vehicle. You have no probable cause to search." "Sir, I'm trying to help you here." "No, officer, you're trying to search my car without legal authority, and I'm exercising my Fourth Amendment right to decline." Nolan stared at him. 5 seconds. 10. The air between them thickened like humidity before a storm. A bead of sweat rolled down the side of Nolan's neck. His hand drifted back toward his belt. Not to his weapon, but close. Always close. He turned away, keyed his radio. The static crackled in the warm afternoon air. "Dispatch requesting K-9 unit to Grand Lakeshore Country Club. Possible vehicle theft. Suspect is uncooperative." Suspect. Uncooperative. Byron had shown every document, answered every question, hadn't raised his voice once. But because he said no to an illegal search, he was now a suspect. Because he knew his rights, he was now uncooperative. The K-9 unit was 20 minutes out. That meant Byron Fletcher, CEO, multimillionaire, rightful owner of the car and the club, was going to stand in a parking lot for at least another 20 minutes. In front of 40 witnesses, under flashing lights, for a crime that never happened. Patricia watched from near the terrace steps, arms crossed, chin lifted. She turned to one of her friends and said, loud enough to carry, "They're handling it. Finally. These people think they can just walk in anywhere." These people. Officer Caldwell stood by the second squad car. She hadn't said much, but she was watching everything. The way Nolan positioned himself, the way Patricia kept inserting herself, the way Byron's documents sat on the dashboard of the cruiser instead of back in his hands. She walked over to Nolan, spoke low. "Greg, his documents check out. Manager confirmed membership. Maybe we should just..." "I called the K-9, we're waiting." "On what basis? Registration matches, license matches. There's no probable cause for..." "I said we're waiting, Caldwell." She looked at him. He looked past her. Conversation over. Caldwell stepped back. She didn't push further. She should have, she knew it. But rank has a gravity of its own, and Nolan had seniority. Meanwhile, Nolan turned back to Byron. "While we wait, I'm going to need you to sit down." He pointed at the curb. The curb. Like Byron was a teenager caught shoplifting at a gas station. Like the concrete edge of a parking lot was where this man belonged. Byron looked at the curb, then looked at Nolan. "I'll stand." "I said sit down." "And I said I'll stand. I haven't been charged with anything. I'm not under arrest. I'll stand." Nolan stepped closer. Close enough that Byron could smell the coffee on his breath. Close enough that the body camera on Nolan's chest could only see Byron's torso, not his face. Convenient framing. Maybe intentional, maybe not, but convenient. "You really want to make this harder than it needs to be?" Byron didn't blink. "I'm not making anything hard, officer. I'm standing in a parking lot next to my own car." The moment stretched. 5 seconds. 10. 15. The terrace was dead silent. You could hear the flag on the clubhouse pole snapping in the breeze. Caldwell stepped between them, gently, professionally. "Let's just wait for the unit, Greg. He's not going anywhere." Nolan backed off, half a step. His eyes stayed on Byron like a dog watching a fence. That's when Patricia made her next move. She walked over to the officers, uninvited, and added more fuel to a fire she had already set. "Officer, I want you to know, he was lurking around the parking lot earlier, before he went to the car. He was walking between the vehicles, looking inside them. I saw him casing the lot." This was a lie, A complete fabrication. Byron had walked in a straight line from the dining room to his car. 30 seconds, one direction. But Patricia said it with the confidence of a woman who had never been questioned in her life. Then she added another one. And when I first confronted him, he threatened me. He got aggressive. He said if I didn't walk away, I'd regret it. Byron had said 9 words in that entire exchange. This is my car. I'm a member here. Walk away. That was it. No threats, no aggression, nothing even close. But Patricia knew something Byron also knew. In situations like this, her word carried more weight than his. She didn't need evidence. She needed tears and a trembling voice. And she had both ready. Nolan wrote it down. He didn't verify. He didn't ask for witnesses. He didn't check the valet stand security camera 10 feet away. He just wrote it down. Byron watched him write. His pulse climbed. Not from fear, from the slow-burning recognition of a system doing exactly what it was designed to do. His jaw tightened. His fists clenched for half a second, then released. He breathed, counted. 4 in, 4 out. He had spent 30 years learning to control his body in moments like this. Because he understood, deeply, painfully, that his anger, no matter how justified, would become their evidence. One raised voice, one clenched fist, one step in the wrong direction. That's all it would take to turn a victim into a perpetrator. So he stood still, and he burned quietly. Now, let me tell you about Russell. Russell had been watching this whole thing from behind the valet podium. 9 years at this club. 9 years of yes, sir, and right away, ma'am, and smiling through things that should have made him scream. He knew every car in that lot. He knew every member's name, their preferred parking spot, their drink order, their kids' names. He was invisible in the way that only service workers of color can be, essential but unseen. Russell had Byron's valet records on the tablet behind the stand. Check-in logs, parking assignments, dates, 2 years of Saturdays, the Rolls-Royce Spectre, spot number 12, every single week. He could end this whole thing in 30 seconds. Walk over, show the screen. Done. But Russell was also the only black employee on shift. He had been written up last month for tone when he politely told a white member she couldn't park in the fire lane. The write-up went in his file. His manager told him to be more mindful of how he comes across. 9 years of perfect service, 1 moment of professionalism, and it became a disciplinary issue. He knew what speaking up could cost him. His job, his insurance, his daughter's tuition. All of it. Gone. If the wrong person decided he was being difficult. But he also knew what staying silent would cost him. Something smaller but heavier. Something that would sit in his chest for years. Russell made his choice. He pulled up the valet log on his tablet. He walked, slowly, carefully, not toward Nolan but toward Caldwell. He showed her the screen. Officer, Mr. Fletcher has been parking that car here every Saturday for 2 years. I've parked it myself dozens of times. That's his vehicle. Caldwell looked at the screen, nodded. She walked to Nolan and showed him. Nolan glanced at it, shrugged. Could be someone else's car he's been using. Doesn't prove anything. We wait for the canine. Russell stood there, his evidence dismissed in 2 seconds. He looked at Byron across the lot. Byron looked back. A small nod, almost invisible. That nod said everything. I see you. Thank you. I know what that cost you. Russell walked back to the valet stand. His hands were shaking. The K9 unit was 12 minutes away. Byron stood in the same spot, same posture, same silence. The sun was getting lower. The shadows stretched across the parking lot like long fingers reaching for something they couldn't quite touch. The sprinklers had stopped. The terrace was quiet now, not peaceful quiet, but the kind of quiet that happens when people know they're watching something wrong and choosing to do nothing about it. Byron checked his watch. He had been standing in that lot for 45 minutes. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, made one call. One single call that changed everything. Byron held the phone to his ear. It rang twice. Ray, it's me. Raymond Ellis, Byron's attorney, his college roommate at Howard, and the one person on earth Byron trusted without hesitation, picked up on the other end. Byron spoke quietly, almost a whisper, the kind of voice you use when you don't want anyone to hear but you need every word to land perfectly. I'm at Lakeshore. I need you to come down here. Bring the acquisition documents, all of them, the corporate filings, the org chart, everything. A pause on the other end. Then Raymond's voice, low, steady, already moving. How bad? Bad enough. I'm 20 minutes out. Make it 15. Byron hung up, slid the phone back in his pocket. He looked across the parking lot at Patricia, who was leaning against the valet stand, chatting with her friends like she was at a garden party, laughing, relaxed, victorious. Byron almost smiled. Almost. 15 minutes later, a black Lincoln Town car turned into the club entrance. No flash, no drama, just a quiet car rolling slowly across the gravel like it had all the time in the world. Raymond Ellis stepped out. 6'2", three-piece charcoal suit, leather portfolio under his arm, gold-rimmed glasses. He looked like a man who had walked into 1,000 rooms and owned every single one of them. He didn't rush. He buttoned his jacket. He adjusted his cuffs. Then he walked, deliberately, slowly, across the parking lot toward the squad cars. Patricia noticed him first. She stopped mid-laugh. Her eyes tracked him the way you track something you don't understand but already fear. Raymond walked past her without a glance. He went straight to Officer Nolan. Officer, my name is Raymond Ellis. I'm an attorney with Ellis, Grant & Associates. I represent Mr. Byron Fletcher. He opened the leather portfolio. I have documentation here that I believe will resolve this situation immediately. Nolan crossed his arms. And what documentation would that be? Raymond laid the papers on the hood of the squad car, one by one, calmly, like dealing cards in a game he had already won. First, the vehicle title. A Rolls-Royce Spectre, midnight blue. Registered owner, Byron A. Fletcher. Title clear. No liens, no disputes. Second, corporate filings for Titan Crest Holdings. Listed CEO and majority shareholder, Byron A. Fletcher. Third, the acquisition agreement. Titan Crest Holdings had acquired a 60% ownership stake in Lakeshore Hospitality Group, the parent company. The company that owned and operated the Grand Lakeshore Country Club. The company that employed every person working in this building. Fourth, the subsidiary organizational chart. Raymond pointed to two names highlighted in yellow. Patricia Davenport, Vice President of Operations. Stuart Davenport, Chief Financial Officer. Both employees of Lakeshore Hospitality Group. Both working under Titan Crest Holdings. Both, ultimately, reporting to Byron Fletcher. Raymond looked at Nolan. Then he turned, slowly, so his voice carried across the parking lot, across the valet circle, up to the terrace, to every member standing with a wine glass and a phone. Let me make this very clear, officer. My client is not stealing from this club. My client owns this club. And the woman who called the police on him? He paused, looked directly at Patricia. She works for him. Silence. Not the awkward kind, not the uncomfortable kind. The kind of silence that happens when the ground shifts under everyone's feet at the same time. The kind where 40 people hold their breath and realize they just watched something they can never undo. Patricia's face drained, not slowly, all at once, like someone pulled a plug behind her eyes. Her mouth opened, her lips moved, but nothing came out. Her friend touched her arm. Patricia didn't feel it. Officer Nolan looked at the documents, looked at Byron, looked at the ground. His hand dropped from his belt for the first time in an hour. Officer Caldwell stepped forward immediately. She looked at Byron. Mr. Fletcher, you're free to go. I apologize for the inconvenience. Inconvenience. Byron let the word pass. He didn't correct her. Not now. Nolan said nothing. He picked up the documents, handed them back to Raymond, and walked to his cruiser. He didn't apologize. He didn't look back. He got in, closed the door, and stared at his steering wheel like it held the answer to what just happened. Patricia unfroze. She took 2 steps toward Byron. Her voice cracked. I didn't know. I was just trying to... Byron held up one hand, palm flat, the universal signal for stop. We'll be in touch, Mrs. Davenport. 5 words. No anger, no shouting, no dramatic monologue. Just 5 words that carried the weight of everything that was about to come. Byron walked to his Rolls Royce. He opened the door. The interior smelled like leather and cedar. He sat down. The engine purred to life, a deep, low vibration that you felt more than heard. He pulled out of the parking lot slowly, not fast, not dramatic, slowly, like a man who had nowhere to rush to because he already owned everything in sight. The crowd on the terrace parted at the railing, phones lowered, glasses sat untouched. Nobody spoke. Russell stood behind the valet podium. He watched the Rolls Royce roll toward the exit. And for the first time in this entire story, Russell smiled. The sun sat lower now. Long shadows stretched across the gravel. The breeze had died. The flag on the clubhouse pole hung limp and still. The terrace was silent. The laughter was gone. The clinking was gone. The only sound was the quiet hum of a midnight blue Rolls Royce disappearing down the tree-lined drive. And Patricia Davenport, still standing in the parking lot, still holding her phone, still wearing that cream-colored blazer, had never looked smaller in her life. It took less than 3 hours for Patricia Davenport's world to collapse. The first video hit social media at 4:12 p.m. A 23-year-old club member had filmed the entire confrontation from the terrace railing. Horizontal, steady, clear audio. You could hear every word Patricia said, every single one. You black apes can't even afford the hubcaps. You crawled in like a cockroach. This thug is stealing a car. The video was 2 minutes and 46 seconds long. By 6 p.m., it had 400,000 views. By midnight, it had crossed 2 million. A second angle surfaced an hour later, filmed from the valet stand. This one caught Raymond Ellis laying the documents on the hood of the squad car. It caught the moment he turned to the crowd and said the words that would become the headline of every article written about this day. She works for him. The internet did what the internet does. It moved fast, and it moved hard. The hashtag she works for him started trending at 8 p.m. By morning, it was the #1 trend in the United States. Right behind it, hashtag Lakeshore Karen. Patricia tried damage control. She posted a statement on her personal Facebook page at 10 p.m. that night. Her hands must have been shaking when she typed it because it was full of typos. She called the incident a terrible misunderstanding. She said she was concerned for the safety of the club community. She said she didn't see his membership card and reacted out of caution, not malice. Nobody bought it. The comment section turned into a courtroom. Strangers dissected every frame of the video. They transcribed her words. They circled her facial expressions in screenshots. They found her LinkedIn profile. They found Stewart's. They found the company page for Lakeshore Hospitality Group. Stuart Davenport called Patricia at 11 p.m. She could hear the panic in his voice before he even finished his first sentence. Do you understand what you've done? He owns the company, Patricia. He owns US, our jobs, our salaries, our benefits, everything. And you called him a cockroach on camera. Patricia didn't answer. She sat at her kitchen table in the dark, staring at her phone screen, watching the view count climb like a timer on a bomb. Meanwhile, Raymond Ellis was not sleeping either, but he wasn't panicking. He was working. By Sunday morning, Raymond had filed a formal request for Officer Nolan's body camera footage through the Chicago Police Department's Civilian Oversight Office. The request cited potential civil rights violations and unlawful detention. The footage arrived 48 hours later, and it confirmed everything. Byron was compliant from the first second to the last, hands visible, voice calm. He provided identification immediately. He answered every question. He never raised his voice. He never made a threatening gesture. He never resisted. Officer Nolan, on the other hand, the footage showed a different story. He ignored verified documentation. He refused to release Byron's ID after confirming it was valid. He ordered Byron to sit on a curb without legal basis. He called for a canine unit despite having zero probable cause. And he dismissed corroborating evidence from both the club manager and the valet. The police department opened an internal affairs investigation by Wednesday. Officer Nolan was placed on administrative leave pending review. His badge was collected. His service weapon was collected. He was told to go home and wait. Officer Caldwell cooperated fully. She provided a written statement that supported Byron's account in every detail. She also noted, on the record, that she had advised Nolan to release Byron twice and was overruled both times. Now, Byron. Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. Byron Fletcher walked into the Titan Crest Holdings headquarters in downtown Chicago. Glass building, 32nd floor, corner office with a view of the lake. The same lake he watched every morning from his penthouse, but from higher up now. The lake looked different from a boardroom. Everything did. He called an emergency meeting of the Lakeshore Hospitality Group leadership. Video conference. 12 faces on the screen, all silent, all waiting. Byron spoke 4 sentences. Effective immediately, Patricia Davenport is terminated from her position as Vice President of Operations. Stuart Davenport is suspended pending a full HR review. I am ordering a comprehensive audit of all hiring practices, member complaint records, and internal communications at Lakeshore Hospitality Group. Any patterns of discriminatory conduct will be addressed. That is all. He ended the call. It lasted 90 seconds. Patricia received the termination notice by courier that afternoon. A man in a gray uniform rang her doorbell at 3:15 p.m. She signed for the envelope. She opened it at her kitchen table, the same table where she had sat in the dark 2 nights earlier. Her hands shook as she read it. Terminated. Effective immediately. No severance. No appeal. No conversation. She set the letter down. She looked out the window. The sprinklers were running on her front lawn. The sun was shining. The neighborhood was quiet, but for Patricia Davenport, the noise was just beginning. The story might have ended there. A firing, a viral video, a hashtag that trended for a week and then faded into the algorithm like everything else. But this story didn't fade, because Nina Alvarez wouldn't let it. Nina was a reporter for Channel 9 News in Chicago, 31 years old, sharp, relentless, the kind of journalist who read comment sections not for entertainment, but for leads. She saw the hashtag #SheWorksForHim hashtag on Sunday night. By Monday morning, she had watched both videos 14 times. By Monday afternoon, she had requested an interview with Byron Fletcher. Byron declined. He didn't do cameras. He didn't do press conferences. He didn't do sound bites. But he did something he had never done before. He issued a written statement through Raymond Ellis. It read, "What happened to me happens to black men and women every day, in parking lots, in stores, in their own neighborhoods. The difference is that I had the resources to prove who I was. Most people don't. That is the problem." Nina read that statement on air. Then she did what good reporters do. She started digging. Her first call was to the Grand Lakeshore Country Club's front office. She requested member complaint records under the Illinois Freedom of Information Act. The club was privately owned, so FOIA didn't apply directly. But Lakeshore Hospitality Group had received municipal tax incentives in 2021. That opened a door. A narrow one, but Nina walked through it. What she found on the other side changed the story. Patricia Davenport had filed complaints against people of color at the club on 2 prior occasions. The first, 18 months earlier, targeted a black couple named the Hendersons. Patricia reported them to security for trespassing. They were members. They had been members for 3 years. Security approached them during dinner, asked to see their membership cards, in front of a full dining room. The Hendersons left and never came back. They canceled their membership the next week. The second complaint, 9 months before the Byron incident, targeted a Latino caterer named Carlos Medina. Patricia accused him of stealing kitchen supplies from the club during an event. Carlos was a licensed vendor. He was delivering supplies, not stealing them. He had a signed contract and an itemized invoice. Patricia never checked. She just called security. Carlos was escorted out in front of his own staff. He lost the contract. He lost 2 other clients who heard about the incident. Neither complaint resulted in discipline against Patricia. Neither was investigated. Both were filed and forgotten. But Nina wasn't done. She pulled the club's membership records, the ones that became accessible through the tax incentive filing. The numbers told a story that words couldn't hide. The Grand Lakeshore Country Club had a membership that was 92% white. In a metropolitan area where 43% of the population was non-white. Over the past 5 years, 11 applications from people of color had been flagged as incomplete by Patricia's office. Nina obtained copies of 6 of those applications. Every single one was complete. Every document was attached. Every fee was paid. They were flagged, delayed, and quietly rejected. Nina's investigation aired on a Tuesday evening. 12-minute segment. Prime local news slot. She laid it out piece by piece. The videos, the 911 call audio, the body camera footage, the prior complaints, the membership data, Byron's statement. The segment was picked up nationally by Wednesday morning. Cable news panels discussed it. Op-ed columns ran in the Tribune, the Times, and the Post. Legal analysts broke down the body camera footage frame by frame. Civil rights organizations issued statements. Social media exploded again. But this time, it wasn't just outrage. It was organized. And then came the law. Raymond Ellis filed a civil lawsuit against Patricia Davenport personally. 3 counts. Filing a false police report. Defamation for the fabricated claims that Byron had threatened her and was casing the lot. And intentional infliction of emotional distress. Separately, and this was important, the Cook County District Attorney filed criminal charges against Patricia. 2 misdemeanor counts. Filing a false police report. Making false statements to law enforcement. The DA cited the 911 call recording, the body camera footage, and the testimony of 4 witnesses, including Officer Caldwell. Officer Nolan faced departmental charges through the Internal Affairs investigation. Unlawful detention. Failure to follow protocol on verified documentation. Violation of the department's racial profiling mandates. His body camera footage became the centerpiece. Legal analysts on television played it in slow motion. The moment he told Byron to sit on the curb. The moment he dismissed the valet records. The moment he called for a K-9 unit with 0 probable cause. Stuart Davenport was cleared of direct involvement in the parking lot incident. He wasn't there when it happened. He didn't make the call. But the HR audit that Byron ordered uncovered something else. Stewart had been aware of 3 separate discrimination complaints filed by employees and club members over the past 2 years. He had suppressed all 3, buried them in filing systems, marked them as resolved without investigation. When the audit surfaced this pattern, Stewart was terminated. Patricia's criminal trial began on a gray morning in October. She pleaded not guilty. Her defense attorney argued she genuinely believed the car was being stolen, that she acted out of reasonable concern, that she was protecting her community. The prosecution dismantled that argument in 2 days. They played the 911 call. They played all 3 cell phone videos. They played the body camera footage. They presented Byron's verified documentation, license, registration, membership card, ownership records. They presented Patricia's 2 prior false reports. They presented her written complaints about members of color. They presented the flagged membership applications. Character witnesses for Patricia were sparse. Her attorney called 3. 2 were club friends who offered vague praise about her community involvement. The third was a former colleague who admitted under cross-examination that Patricia had once referred to a black delivery driver as the help. Judge Carolyn Whitfield delivered the ruling on a Friday afternoon. Courtroom was packed. Cameras in the hallway. Nina Alvarez in the second row. Guilty. Both counts. The sentence: 18 months of probation, 200 hours of community service, specifically with civil rights organizations, mandatory completion of a racial bias education program certified by the state, and a $25,000 fine. Patricia stood in the courtroom with her hands clasped in front of her. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She stared straight ahead like a woman watching her entire identity crumble in real time. The civil case settled 3 weeks later. Patricia was ordered to pay Byron Fletcher $350,000 in damages. The judgment was public record. Her name, the amount, the reason, permanent, searchable, forever. Officer Nolan's internal affairs review concluded in November. He was terminated from the Chicago Police Department. He lost his pension eligibility. He was barred from law enforcement employment anywhere in the state of Illinois. He did not face criminal charges. The department argued that termination and pension loss were sufficient. Civil rights groups disagreed. But the badge was gone. The uniform was gone. The authority he had abused in that parking lot, gone. The Chicago Police Department issued a formal public apology to Byron Fletcher. The superintendent read it at a press conference, standing behind a podium, cameras flashing. He announced mandatory de-escalation and implicit bias training for all officers, effective immediately. Raymond Ellis stood in the back of that press conference, arms folded. He didn't smile. He had seen too many apologies that came too late to believe this one would change everything. But it was a start. 6 months later, the Grand Lakeshore Country Club looked the same from the outside. Same manicured lawns, same white facade, same flags snapping on the pole above the entrance. The sprinklers still hissed across the fairway every morning at dawn. But inside, everything had changed. Byron Fletcher restructured the membership review process from the ground up. No more internal gatekeepers. No more Patricia Davenports deciding who belonged and who didn't. All new applications were now reviewed by an independent committee. 5 members, diverse backgrounds, no affiliation with club staff. Every application received a response within 30 days. Every rejection required a written explanation reviewed by legal counsel. The results were immediate. In 6 months, the club's membership went from 8% people of color to 26%. New faces at the bar, new families on the terrace, new kids in the pool. The dining room sounded different now. More languages, more laughter, more life. Russell, the valet who stepped forward that day, who risked his job to show a tablet screen to an officer who didn't care, Russell was promoted. Guest services manager. He had an office now, a small one, behind the front desk, with a window that looked out over the parking lot where he had stood for 9 years watching other people's lives happen. Now he trained new staff, not just on parking procedures and guest protocols, on dignity, on how to treat every person who walked through those doors like they mattered, because they did. Byron still came for Saturday brunch, every week. Same corner table by the window, same grilled salmon, same sparkling water, same tablet propped against the breadbasket. But something was different now. When he walked through the parking lot, people greeted him. Not with fear, not with awkwardness, with respect. A nod from the bartender, a wave from the new hostess, a handshake from a member he'd never spoken to before. On the wall of the club's new community room, a space Byron had funded and designed, there was a framed quote. Simple black text on white paper. No attribution, just the words. Character is how you treat those who can do nothing for you. Byron chose that quote himself. He never told anyone why. One Sunday afternoon, Byron drove south, away from the lakefront, away from the glass towers, down through streets that got narrower and rougher with every mile, past corner stores with barred windows, past basketball courts with cracked concrete, past a church where his mother used to sing in the choir every Easter. He parked the Rolls-Royce in front of a small brick house with a chain-link fence and a garden that looked like it was tended by someone who loved it more than anything. Lorraine Fletcher was on the porch, 71 years old, retired, a glass of sweet tea in her hand, Motown playing from a speaker inside the screen door, Marvin Gaye, soft and low. Byron sat beside her. The wicker chair creaked under his weight. They were quiet for a while, the kind of quiet that only happens between two people who don't need words to say things. Lorraine broke the silence first. "Did you ever think about yelling back?" Byron looked at the garden, new blooms pushing through dark soil, purple and yellow, stubborn and beautiful. "Every second." "But you didn't." "No, Mama, I didn't." "Why?" He looked at her. "Because you taught me that silence can be louder than any shout. That day, my silence became the evidence." Lorraine nodded. She sipped her tea. She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. Byron sat on that porch for 2 hours. He watched the garden. He listened to Marvin Gaye. He thought about Russell standing behind that valet podium with shaking hands. He thought about the Hendersons, the couple Patricia had chased out of the club 3 years ago. He thought about Carlos Medina, the caterer who lost his contract and his reputation because a white woman decided he looked like a thief. He thought about all the black men who don't have an attorney on speed dial, who don't have documents in a leather portfolio, who don't have cameras rolling, whose silence isn't strategy, it's survival, with no guarantee of safety. So here's what I want to leave you with. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a man standing still while the world tries to move him. Byron didn't win because he was rich. He won because the truth was on his side. But his wealth gave him the platform to be heard. It gave him a lawyer, corporate documents, and a name that carried weight. What about the people who don't have that platform? The system responded, eventually, but it took viral videos, a national hashtag, an attorney, ownership documents, a news investigation, and a criminal trial for one black man to be believed over one white woman's assumption. That's not justice. That's an obstacle course. So here's my question, and I really want you to think about this one. If Byron Fletcher didn't own that company, if he was just a regular man with a nice car and a clean record and the truth on his side, do you think this story would have ended the same way? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear it. And if this story hit you somewhere real, if it made you angry or made you think, or made you want to share it with someone who needs to hear it, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this video. And if you're not subscribed yet, come on, you know what to do. I'll see you in the next one.
So the woman who called him a cockroach worked for him, and she had no idea. But here's the thing. Byron won. Patricia lost everything. Her job, her reputation, her freedom. Justice showed up. But look at what it took for justice to show up. A $900 million net worth, an attorney with corporate documents, 2 viral videos, a national hashtag, a news investigation, and a criminal trial. All of that just for one black man to be believed over one white woman's assumption. Now think about Rochelle, the valet, 9 years at that club. He walked over, showed the proof, and got dismissed in 2 seconds. Same truth, no platform. That's the difference. The truth doesn't change, but who gets to be heard? That changes everything. So let me ask you this. If your silence could save you, but your silence also means watching someone else drown, what would you do? And if the truth is on your side, but nobody with power is listening, is it still the truth? Or Is it just noise? Drop the answer in the comments. I want to hear it. If this story hit you somewhere real, share it. Hit subscribe. I got another one coming that I will have your jaw on the floor. Stay low, build hype.